Good day, everyone. Well, what do we have here? Is that an actual human voice I'm hearing on the Ramwiki channel? My name is Enki, with the first episode of Ramwiki TV. Very original name, I know. With the recent influx of subscribers in the last couple of weeks, following the start of our 25 Jahre Herzeleid celebration, we decided that we should begin working on more regular and scripted content for this channel, instead of only doing our uploads of archival material like our rips of the demo tapes and 100 Jahre Rammstein and that sort of thing. So, I was brought in to be the friendly English voice of the wiki. And yes, I do apologize in advance. That's quite enough of that, though. We're not here to talk about my dumbass. I thought we'd start out this video series by revealing a wealth of new exclusive information about the concert on July 2nd, 1994. Though played in Berlin, this is better known as the Tacheles concert, after the venue in which it was played. I know that many of you follow the Rammstein demo community very closely, and that you have been dying to hear more info about this show. Fortunately, I was incredibly lucky to have the opportunity to be invited to listen to the entire Tacheles tape myself, and I took detailed notes about each song, which I'm going to run through with you. But first, I'd like to give a bit of background info. For those of you who don't know, the Tacheles tape is the earliest known recording of a Rammstein concert, filmed just months after the band's first ever show. The existence of this recording first became known to the public about a year ago, and since then, on the day of the 25th anniversary of Herzeleid, the first ever snippets of Tacheles were released online, partially showing both Bringer and Feuerräder. In the week following the anniversary, Ramwiki obtained the full setlist of the show, which is an absolute goldmine of all the famous demo songs from that time period. Schwarzes Glas, Bringer, Tier 94, Jeder lacht, and even Alter Mann were all performed at this show. Interestingly, there are actually two different recordings of this concert, but this mysterious second tape is incomplete and unavailable. Since this recording is much earlier than the other two available 1994 recordings, Schlettwein and Saalfeld, you could imagine that many of the songs played at Tacheles would have many differences, both lyrically and musically, compared to their later versions. And you would be right. Now that I've kept you waiting long enough, I'm going to go down the set list one by one and go over as much as I can in detail. If you're anything like me, this video will be like demo porn for you. Or maybe I'll just bore everyone to death. And just so we're all clear right here at the start, this video is not going to contain any audio from the Tacheles concert at all. This is purely a report on the audio itself, not some sort of leak of the concert or something like that. It would be impossible to include the concert in this video for reasons that I would hope would be obvious. To the surprise of no one, this is the first song. Right before the intro starts to play, and for a short section throughout it, you can hear the club playing its own music in the background. The sound engineer or DJ or whoever it was forgot to shut it off, I guess. But this only lasts for a short while. Following that is what feels like the longest Rammstein intro ever, but I guess it was just because of the anticipation of this being a rare show, because I went back and I checked, and Saalfeld's version of the intro is about 10 seconds longer. Saalfeld also has these extra synth high notes, which are layered over the intro sequence, and these are missing from Tacheles. There's also this whoosh thing before the verses, and this also isn't on Tacheles. Aside from that stuff though, the lyrics and structure of this version are pretty consistent with the other live demos, just minor deviations. Alright, this is where it starts getting good. Second song played, Tia 94. The legendary Tia is not the same version as the other two recordings. Yeah, just sit there and absorb that for a second. I know I had to. There are both minor and significant changes. First off, the long-held intro synth note, this appears to be a different preset, but it's also possible that the audible difference is just a difference in recording quality. After this, when the opening synth hits start to play with the drums, the bass starts playing the main riff at that same moment. The bass is very loud and very noticeable, and since it's isolated from the guitars in the intro, it actually gives us our clearest idea yet of how the main riff of the song is actually played. This bass intro is not played on the Schlettwein and Saalfeld versions. At this point, the song starts to continue on like normal, as you would expect, up until the second verse. When the second verse starts, it sounds like Flake fucks up his timing and starts playing the keyboard section late. After this comes the chorus, which goes off like normal. The one notable thing, I guess, being that Till throws a "ja" on the end of the last line like he does on Schlettwein. After the chorus, the guitars play a short section of slides and eighth notes that is unique to this version of Tia. It's pretty cool, but you don't get much time to sit and appreciate it before Till, determined not to let Flake be a bigger fuck-up than himself, skips the entire third verse and just repeats the second verse instead. So up to this point, the song has gone first verse, second verse, chorus, second verse again, then fourth verse. Legendary. If you're wondering how I know that this was in fact Till fucking up the lyrics and not just how the song was supposed to be back then, let's just say that he does this like 3 or 4 more times as the concert goes on. It's like listening to a high school band's first rehearsal. This is also a fucking nightmare for the age-old lyrics debate. It's hard enough to tell what the hell this man is saying when he actually gets the words right to begin with. Jesus. Anyway, after the second chorus comes the most interesting part of the song by far, the bass solo. Yes, there is a goddamn Tia bass solo, and it is the most beautiful thing to have ever graced my ears. It plays by itself for a while, and then the keyboard starts playing these tiny little bits here and there, teasing the keyboard solo. After the bass does its own thing for a while, the keyboard solo actually finally begins. It's a little bit different from the other recordings of it, you know, different transitions between the loops and stuff like that, but largely recognizable. After this, the rest of the song plays out as you would expect. I didn't notice any differences in the lyrics except for the obvious mistake. I know that what all of you have been waiting for me to say this entire time is that we could finally figure out the correct lyrics from the Tachlis recording, but unfortunately, we just can't. The words are just too hard to hear, even still. Overall, it was absolutely fascinating to hear another recording of Tia, especially one that has very noticeable differences compared to the other known version. After Tia is, predictably, Jeder lacht, though you wouldn't quite know it from listening to just the intro. The song starts with some very unrecognizable drum beats and this loud, sweeping, whooshing type synth sort of sound. This leads into the synth intro proper, which is completely different from every other recording of the song. The Schlettwein version of Jeder lacht has the same synth intro that the studio demo uses, and the Saalfeld version has a different synth from that. But Tacheles? Tacheles has something else entirely, as if the freaky atmospheric stuff and drums at the start weren't enough. The synth intro here sounds extremely creepy and drawn out. It sounds like how a panic attack feels. Up to this point in the song, it is completely unrecognizable as Jede Lacht. I genuinely had no idea what song this was supposed to be until the main riff started. I was almost positive before then that I was listening to a completely unknown track. Anyway, after the synth ends, the main riff just starts abruptly. There's no long-held note played at the start by the guitars as a lead-in, not like in the studio version. After all of that, the rest of the song is like what we know today. The lyrics are identical to the Schlettwein version of the song. I was hoping that, since this recording of Jede Lacht is much older than Saalfeld and Schlettwein, and a lot closer to the date of the 5-track demo, that the recording would be more like that studio demo, with the Tia shouted during the chorus and the studio demo's version of the guitar solo. But unfortunately, it has neither of these things. This is another extremely interesting one. If you had asked me a year ago, I would have told you that Heirate mich probably didn't exist yet as a song back in July 1994. I always assumed that it was written much later in the year. But I was quite wrong. It existed, and it was pretty fucking well put together back then. This version of Heirate mich, surely called Kinski at the time, starts out with a very long choral and synth intro, around a minute long. That may sound familiar to you, but it's very different from every other version of the Heirate mich intro that I've ever heard. It is significantly more vocal. The choir just goes up and down and all over the place. It's super creepy. Apparently, the guys had a thing for long, drawn-out, terrifying synth intros at this point. Till does not sing any vocals whatsoever during this intro. That opening verse, Man sieht ihn die Kirche schleichen, that just doesn't happen, doesn't exist at all at this time, it looks like. After the intro comes those 2 drum hits, and the guitar plays a bit. The backing synth at this part also sounds different from what's normally there. Throughout the song, actually, the synth is just a little bit different overall. When the main riff kicks on, the guitar riff sounds like it might be different as well, but it's beyond my ear to be able to say exactly. At the end of the main riff's few measures, before it loops back again, it sounds like there's an extra synth behind it playing something ascending. It sounds brassy, but it could also possibly just be the guitars themselves. Whatever it is, it's an extremely nice touch and really added a lot to the song, I thought. I wish they had kept it. Now, Till begins to sing. But just before he says his first word, there's this very loud, shrill scream that happens a few times in the first half of the song. Now, on Schlettwein, Till screams like this as the song starts, but this doesn't sound like Till at all. By the last time it happens, I'm really just convinced that it's some sort of crackhead in the audience just being annoying. But I can't rule out that it's one of the other band members, or a sample from Flaka's keyboard, or something of that nature. Aside from some differences in the synth, the verses and choruses continue on, with lyrics more or less identical to the other 2 live demos, at least up until the verses after the keyboard solo. But let's cover that solo first. I really wish the solo here wasn't just confined to the live demos. It would have fit great on the studio version. The keyboard during the solo plays a different pattern than Schlettwein and Saalfeld, and it is a bit quieter and tame, but it is a very similar sounding preset like chirping birds or glass or something. It's kind of hard to describe. After the solo comes the bit with the Ich hab den Kopf ihm abgehackt line, but he sings that whole section like it's a normal verse. It's very strange. The part where he screams and the guitar solo plays, that just doesn't happen at all here. Like, to understand what it is I mean, he sings it in the same way that he sings the first verse, which is followed by those 2 drum hits. Then there's a verse after that, also sung like normal, and this verse has some new lyrics. This is followed by the final verse, also with slightly different lyrics, which is sung with the same intensified pattern as the final verse on the Schlettwein version of the song. Der schwarze Hahn is a very interesting new line. And then there's the minor difference of das einsame Tier in the chorus instead of ein einsames Tier, which he said each previous time. After this is the end of the song, which on Schlettwein and Saalfeld sounds like this. There's that short synth bit and then it just ends. But the Tacheles version of the outro is fucking psychedelic. That synth bit is extremely long. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. It makes you feel uncomfortable, and you're sitting there thinking, when the hell is this gonna stop? And just as you think for sure that it's about to stop, it just keeps going, and the volume gets louder, and the synth gets more chaotic, and the guitars begin to play a unique riff underneath it, and it just keeps going, and you feel like you're losing your goddamn mind until it finally ends. And then you realize it was just 26 seconds long. Doesn't sound like all that much, but trust me, that is a long-ass time to hold out an outro like that for. Jeez, what an experience. I rate this version of Kinski 9 Hinkelsteine out of 10. After Heirate mich, there are just a bunch of whooshes and stock dramatic transition type sounds. It literally just sounds like Flak is playing a sequence that he bought off of some stock audio website. But after that, alrighty, we've reached Weißes Fleisch. We knew this one was coming, it was very common back then. This song has been one of their most consistent sounding songs throughout the years. Surely it won't be too different from what I'm used to. Oh, if only. The intro appears normal at first, but pretty quickly, Flake begins to play this weird, distorted Fleisch sample over and over and over again. He uses it throughout the song. It just sounds like he's scratching it out on an old school DJ turntable. Fleisch? Fleisch? It just sounds ridiculous, and it's pretty funny. As the intro goes on like that, the guitars come in and they play these short bits here and there that I don't think I've heard anywhere else before, but I'm not certain. And I'm also not going to listen through 600,000 hours of live audio to find out. The lyrics overall are like a mix of the studio demo and album versions. Well, after the first verse comes this isolated Weißes Fleisch, and then the band just plays this short instrumental break, while Flak sits in the corner fleisching up the turntables. And that break leads into the chorus, and I can't really tell who's at fault here for the mistake that follows. It seems to me like the entire band played into the chorus too early, or maybe they had planned to do that, and this idiot just fucked up the words. Either way, the band starts the chorus, and Till sings the complete wrong line. The band freaks out, quickly transitions back out of the chorus, and then plays a short filler section until Till is able to sync back up and join in. Like Laichzeit from 100 Jahre Rammstein, but not quite as extreme as that. After that, the song seemed to go on pretty normally. Thank God. At the very end though, the very last millisecond of the song, DJ Flake slipped in one more Fleisch. Just for effect, before Alter Mann started. Speaking of, yes, Alter Mann really was played here. I never thought I'd ever get to hear a second recording of the 1994 demo of Alter Mann, let alone one so early in the year. But there it is. being with Ramviki for the time that I have, I should honestly not be surprised by all these curveballs anymore, but yet here we stand. This version of Alter Mann also has a couple of differences to the Schlettwein version. First, it opens with a completely different synth intro. It doesn't sound anything like the hits on the Schlettwein tape. It sounds like a somber funeral organ. It plays along for 8 seconds, yes, I timed it. Then the bass line that you'll be familiar with from the Schlettwein tape begins to play. It's noticeably slower than Schlettwein's bass in the intro, and it seems like the song overall has a lower BPM than Schlettwein. The bass is very loud and crisp. It instantly drowns out the organ, which is still playing through. As the bass intro and organ continue on, some choral samples begin to join in. It sounds a lot like the Heirate mich choir that Flake was playing during that song. Again, the pattern persists. Then suddenly the choir stops, and 2 long notes of repetitive chirping play. Very unsettling and creepy sounding. So far, this intro is so completely different from the Schlettwein recording that if the bass line wasn't the same, I'd have no idea what I was listening to. After a long intro, the main riff kicks in, but before the first verse, Till has already started singing. This is possibly another mistake where he started too early and just decided to go with it, but it also sounds like it could be intentional. The guitars are so loud that it's hard to hear exactly what he's saying, but I'm confident that it's one of these 2 things. Pretty soon, we find ourselves at the first verse. This verse has no synth behind Till's vocals, unlike Schlettwein. The synth doesn't start back up again until the second verse, and even then it's still nothing like the verse synth you'll hear on Schlettwein. Instead, it's the funeral organ thing from the beginning. The main riff kicks back on, and finally, a synth starts to play that matches the Schlettwein recording, but it's not in the same place though. The Tacheles version plays it through this whole section, while the Schlettwein only plays it for the second half. Before the third verse on Schlettwein, the instruments break away and there's this drum fill where Till sings Im weißen Sand by itself, then repeating it for the start of the third verse. He also says it twice like this on Tacheles, but there's no break in the song or drum fill, so it sounds like he just repeats the line twice after the verse had already started, making it seem like a mistake. Just sounds awkward. But like I said, because this exact thing was also on Schlettwein, I do think this one was at least intentional. You got 1 point, Till. Don't lose it. The funeral organ continues to play under this verse. On the Schlettwein version of the song, the later half of this verse has some additional guitar that Tacheles doesn't seem to have. On the other hand, though, through the chorus, Tacheles sounds like it has extra guitar that Schlettwein doesn't have. After the chorus comes a repeat of the bass intro, and that's not like what Schlettwein has. Overall, the Tacheles version has too many different little structural details to list them all, although I have tried, and it just sounds a bit more powerful in general. So, next up is Der Bringer, but unfortunately I'm gonna have to call this the end of the video for now. I know, I'm sorry, but I've already given way more detail than what was probably necessary, and if I do that for the whole concert in one go, we'll be here for like 2 hours. So, I'll leave it at Alter Mann, and hope you join me back here for part 2 somewhere down the line. In the meantime, though, I'll be in the comments answering as many of your questions as I can, and if you feel quite like it, feel free to drop a suggestion of the type of topics you'd like to see us cover in this format in the future. Speaking of, what do you think of this format? I have no idea. I've never quite done this before, and this is new for Ramviki, so please do let me know what you thought, and if this is actually something you'd enjoy watching on a regular basis. Alright, this is the end. For real this time.